In this video, we're going to cover second normal form. And there are 6 rules of normal form. In this class, we're only going to be covering 1 and 2, and 1 was covered in a previous video. 2 goes ahead and expands on it. But I want to be clear, the reason why we don't go into 3, 4, 5, and 6 is once you get to 3, actually once you even get to 2, they start becoming a lot more academic and theoretical. So for this, since it's a beginner course, an introduction to databases, I don't want to get too high level. I want to go ahead and stick with just first and second normal form. So, to reiterate, first normal form was to eliminate repeating groups of individual tables, create a separate table for each set of related data, identify each set of related data with a primary key, and every row and column has exactly 1 value. Basically, it meant to go ahead and separate repeating groups like genre off to a different table, and make sure every table does have a primary key, and don't go ahead and stick comma delimited list. Make sure every value has its own field. So the next thing I want to talk about is second normal form, and I'm going to read this first, and then I'm going to explain it. So second normal form, a first normal form table is in second normal form if and only if all of its non-primary attributes are functionally dependent on the whole of every candidate key. Now, a functional dependency is a constraint between 2 sets of attributes in a relation from a database, and a candidate key of a relation is a minimal superkey for that relation or primary key. And I will tell you, after 20 years in databases, this is still a mouthful. So let me break this down and tell you what it really means. If we have a table here where I keep the employee, their skill, and their current work location, what you'll see is I have Jones as the first row, and his skill is typing, and he works on 114 Main Street. But Jones also does shorthand. And yet, even though we know that Jones, which is the identifier of that employee, we need to put in typing and shorthand, it ends up that current work location repeats. And then you get someone down here like Ellis, who also practices alchemy and flying. His location repeats, and you'll see it actually fully repeats again in other places. Basically what it means is when we have a table, we really want to think about the key, meaning the primary key here, and how it relates to the other columns in that table. Specifically, what is the cardinality? And cardinality is a nice big word for the ratio. And what I mean is a user here has multiple skills. So obviously there is a one-to-many relationship between an employee and their skills. And currently here, the employee also has a relation to their work location. But let's go a little further. Right now, all of the work locations are the same for each employee. But have you ever had a job where you worked Monday and, let's say, Monday at one location and then the rest of the week at another location? So it's conceivable that perhaps an employee may even have more than one work location. Maybe one, who knows? But the point is, their relation to their work location is either a one-to-one or even a one-to-many. However, skill and work location don't have a relation. His skill really isn't dependent upon where he works, and where he works really isn't dependent on his skill. He doesn't lose a skill because he works at Main Street, and just because he has shorthand doesn't mean he works on Main Street. So what we want to do is separate these tables. So the employee has a one-to-one or one-to-many relationship with current work location. So if I needed to add Jones onto Industrial Way, I could add Jones and Industrial Way here, and that in no way affects the skill. Here we have Jones with typing, Jones with shorthand, Jones with whittling. There's no data duplicated by work location as we did on the previous table. So second normal form really has to do with the cardinality between the primary key and the other columns in the table. And if it's done improperly, like it is here, we end up with lots of duplicate data. And over here, when it's done properly, we don't end up with duplicate data. We would just say every employee is tied to a work location. Who knows? Maybe this work location, we'd go a step further in applying it and make it a location table and link it to an ID. But that's doesn't have anything to do with second normal form. But anyway, this is second normal form. I promise you in this class I will not quiz you or test you on it. But I do want to expose you to it so you see what second normal form is. Because there are 6 normal forms, and if you do tend to go down, or you do plan on going down the database route and back-end development for your career, these are things you're going to have to know. They're commonly talked about.